Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial in the APFe tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're going to be discussing the bulk updates option inside of the tools menu. So bulk updates is, to give you an overview, bulk updates is a place where you can make changes to your roster on the fly, and there are a various amount of options that you can choose from, and we're going to go through each one here. First one we're going to look at is the ability boost. The ability boost is a tool that you can use to bump up the ratings for players based on what abilities they have. This is something that if you hit F1 and you go to your help, it shows you every single ability that the ability boost tool changes, and this matches what the game does. So in the game, if you were to give a player soft hands, for instance, it's going to bump their catch rating up by 5. So this actually does the same thing in essence, but you can do it inside of APFE. So if you want to take an original roster, what I typically do is I'll take a roster, I'll make my changes, and in my online league, what we do is if we apply abilities to players, then instead of having to go back into APF and in the game and reset every player and save every player, you can just push this button and it will basically do it for you. It will take every player and adjust their ratings based off of these attributes. So that's what the ability boost option does. Advanced year, what it does is it adds 1 year to every player's year pro value. You're going to want to do this when you're creating the next year's roster. And if you're doing franchise mode, that's where it can come in handy as well, because you can bump up everybody's year by 1 just by coming in here and advancing the year. All pro collars is exactly what it is. It sets every player's uniform collar for their home and away jerseys to read all pro. Body BMI, what that does is it takes your player's weight and height and it throws it into a BMI formula, and based on the output, that will change the player's body type from skinny, normal, large, or fat, depending on where they fall with their weight and height in the BMI formula. Body weight is very similar, but instead of using the BMI formula, body weight uses values that are stored in the APF settings.ini file, which I really wouldn't recommend touching. And that file has a weight range that, depending on what weight you are, it will adjust your body type. And it only takes into account your weight, where BMI takes into account your height and weight. Okay. Clear photos, what that does is it takes every single player's photo and sets it to none for all players. Okay. The clear stats, what that does is sets every single player's attributes to 0. So if you want to work off of a clean slate, I know some people out there when they're making rosters, they don't want to have to change every player's ratings based off of whatever they got from the game. So when you save a roster from your game and you bring it into APFE, they're going to have their own ratings, and then you have to adjust every player and just make the changes based off of those ratings. So what you can do here is you can clear all the stats to 0, and it gives you a clean slate to start with. So when you're adjusting all of the players' ratings, you know which ones you've touched versus which ones you haven't. It's very good when you're looking at your roster on the roster screen and you're looking through, and you can easily tell which teams you've already made changes to, and also which players you've made changes to, because the ones that you haven't made changes to, their stats are all going to be 0. Clear stats T is the same exact thing, but it's only going to be for the current team that you have set here. So when you switch teams around, you can adjust all of the ones that show the T symbol here, the T marker here. That's just going to apply just for that team. So whenever you see that, it's the same thing as the one to the left, but it's only going to be for your team. All right, moving on. Faces to generics. Faces to generic, what that does is it iterates through every team's generic players' faces, and it attempts to set the legend's face on that team per skin color, per type. Okay. This is for the entire set of teams, and this is just for your team loaded here. And what this means is, so basically, when you're playing all pro football, you can only put legend faces on players that are star players. Okay, so let's say you have 12 star players on your team, or 11, or whatever it might be. You're only going to see those 11 players on the field because the rest of the players are going to have generic faces. But what you can do in all pro football in the editor, what you can do is if you put the same faces on your generics that are on your 11, any of your 11 legend players. So let's say one of your players has Barry Sanders' face. You're one of your legend players. If you want to set one of your generic players that has the same skin color as the legend Barry Sanders player, this will do that for you. This will take all of your legends and it will say, okay, which generics have the same skin colors, and it will randomly just start to autofill all of the generics with those legend faces. I use it all the time because I don't like to see the generic players' faces, and that's a quick way for you to do that. Okay, this is the team version, and this is the whole thing, the whole roster. Generics. So fixing generics, what that does is it sets all the non-star players to generic for the current team. Right? So if you've been messing around with your roster and you've been changing star players to non-star players and vice versa, what this will do is it will clean up your roster and set all of your non-star players to generic for that team, because they have to be generic for the game to work, and definitely for the game to work with the faces. Okay. Reset user teams. That's very very simple. That just takes all of your user controlled teams and it resets them to be CPU, so you can free up all of your 8 computer or user controlled team slots. Okay. Resign directory, what this one does is it actually goes into, this is for Xbox only, but what it does is it opens up a window where you can browse to a folder, and let's say you have 20 different roster files that you that you want to resign and rehash in one fell swoop. Well, you can do that here. You can click on this button. You can pick the folder that you want that has all of your files in it, and if you click OK, it will resign and rehash all of those files in one shot. So I use this when I'm downloading other people's files and I want to do a quick rehash and resigning for all of those for my Xbox, and that's where you do that here. Okay. SFL settings, what this does is it first updates all the players with ratings that are stored in the SFL settings.csv file. And that's basically gonna set all the players to whatever the game would set them as for gold, bronze, silver, and then generics. Then the second thing it does is it goes through and it applies the ability boosts that you see here. Okay, so what it really does is it makes the roster match what the game would do. So if in the game you have 2 golds, 3 silvers, and 6 bronze, then what this does is it will set all of those players based on the gold, bronze, silver, star types and the positions, and then the generics. It will set all of their ratings just like the game would set them, and then it will apply the ability boosts on top of that just like the game would do. So that's what I call it SFL settings, because the SFL guys, they wanted this when they're creating their teams and their rosters, so that they can easily just make it work just like the game would work. And the reason why this is important is because once you start changing around your roster, sometimes the game won't let you manage the team and make changes to the team. It will break. So this is good because it does what the game does without having to go into the game and maybe freezing your file. Okay, we have one more left basically, so star to legend. So what this does is it takes all of your non-star players and it changes them to legend types. Okay, so um, I'm sorry, all of your star players and changes them to legend types. So for every player that that is a star, usually star players are set to legend types in the game, and this will automatically do that for you. So you can set all of your star players to legend types. So if you've messed around with your roster, just like the generics, if you've changed a generic player to a star now and didn't change their type to a legend, this will do it for you. And this is for the whole roster, and this is for the team. So star player, okay? And that's it. That's bulk updates. It's very useful. There's a lot to do here. If you open up the help menu, it tells you everything I basically just went through here. So there's plenty of documentation for you guys. It's very useful, and I hope that you guys enjoy this tool. Leave your comments and your feedback or questions in the comment section below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Enjoy modding APFE, and I'll catch you in the next video.